gentlemen, welcome back to the Exceptional Conservative Show live from the nation's capital. I'm your host, TheExceptionalOne, Kim McClinton. What a wonderful, wonderful opportunity this is. This is like a Christmas gift before Christmas. Michael Rectenwald is with us. He is the author of Google Archipelago. And there's more about him that you should know. He is the author of 9 books, in fact, including Springtime for Snowflakes, 19th Century British Secularism, and others. He was a professor at NYU from 2008 to 2019 until he was rudely dismissed by the university in settlement. He is a pundit and champion of free speech against all forms of authoritarianism and totalitarianism, including socialism, communism, social justice, fascism, and political correctness. Without further ado, I want to introduce to some, present to others, our very special guest, Michael Rectenwald. It is a great pleasure and honor to have you with us tonight, sir.
Thank you very much, Ken. It's great to be here.
I live in Washington, D.C., and when I tell people that socialism, communism, and Marxism are real, they scoff and they laugh. They virtually tell me that those things are maybe leftist, liberal type things, but it's not necessarily real. If you would, explain to the American people why we're not seeing a seepage of communism, Marxism, and socialism, but we're actually seeing a flooding.
Well, there's been a long-term indoctrination in the universities. That's where it starts. There's been what the left has called the long march through the institutions. They have conducted this march through the institutions since the 60s. The students of the 60s have become the professors. They are not only students; they are teaching the teachers of your students. They have taught the students, the people that have become your students' teachers. This has spread from them through the entire system and into everyday America and its institutions, including all of the school system from K through 12, and I say K through PhD. It is not a joke. We're talking about a very serious ideology. There's the irony of it all. The communists killed over 100 million people in the 20th century, and yet professors can parade around campuses not only not in shame, but in glory and being treated like royalty as Marxists. Now imagine if a professor ran around the university proudly proclaiming themselves to be a Nazi. They would be
Mm.
shunned and shamed and tortured and driven off the campus in 5 minutes or less. We have Marxists proudly declaring themselves on American campuses, and they're being treated not with as shamed, ignominiously disapproved of, or otherwise run out of the university. They're being hailed, they're being honored, they're being revered, and they're spreading their ideology without compunction and without opposition or the slightest bit of resistance.
Michael, there are those who watch tonight and say, come on, this is a group of 20-year-olds. You know, we were all like that at one time in our life. We thought that everything should be free and freely given to us. What's so wrong with a group of kids experiencing or discussing or countervailing with their professors on the issues of economics and socialism and Marxism and adopting those
There's
particular things?
nothing, yeah, there's nothing wrong with the ideas of socialism being discussed, and they shouldn't be uh, treated. Uh, they should not be dismissed in advance. They
Hmm.
should be discussed along. But the problem is they're being treated as sacrosanct, as the truth, and you can't oppose the professors in classes. You can't so much as utter a disagreement, or you will face the consequences that I did. You'll be driven off the campus. You'll probably your grades will suffer first. And also, I should say that it is this notions of socialism and communism have gone under different names now. The
Hmm.
main one is social justice. The
Yes.
social justice ideology is pervasive throughout the whole system.
Now,
And what it is this.
Professor,
Go ahead.
before you say that, because social justice, when you say that, that's racial. You're going against black people and their ideas of being racially discriminated against, and the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered, OPQRSTUVW, that community. You don't understand what they've gone through. You just don't understand.
Yes, I
So you can't comment on that, right?
let me just say this. Today's contemporary social justice movement has nothing to do with the civil rights movement. The
Thank you.
civil rights movement was a tremendously honorable, absolutely necessary, and completely righteous movement. This social justice is nothing to do with that. This contemporary social justice has taken the same name, and under the banner of social justice, they have imported Maoist and Stalinist ideas and techniques and practices, like
Hmm.
like the what they called in the Chinese Communist Party during the Cultural Revolution. Uh, they called it autocritique or self-criticism. That is being practiced in these groups. You see where people have to show themselves and grovel and apologize before everyone about their past or their fact that they're white or whatever. Furthermore, you see evidence of what they called full sessions in Maoism, where
Yes.
they the comrades subject their peers to a total ideological dressing down and ripping their character to shreds to the point where people literally were killed or died from these things. There are videos on YouTube that show people in China, communist China during the Cultural Revolution, literally pummeling themselves in the face to satisfy these Marxist comrades. Bloom again, and they've come back with a vengeance. They're all being practiced by the social justice left. And that's what I'm talking about. It's not the civil rights movement. It's not the rights. We're not talking about movements for the rights of people. We're talking about a kind of what they're doing is using so-called subordinated people as levers for their power. Let me give you an example of this.
Yes.
I'll show you why it's not about the people they say are the victim. Okay, uh, the woman who was the head of one of the most important think tanks in America, black woman. I can't quite remember her name. I could look it up. When she was put, no, when she was put on
Hmm.
the on an advisory board at Google to guide the AI program that was being developed, the Google people, the employees, went absolutely ballistic, attacking her viciously, condemning her and driving her out. They will do anything if the so-called victim is not playing the victim, if they don't be the right way, if they don't act the right, they don't mouth the right words, they're attacked more viciously than anybody. You see this with Candace Owens, the
Yes.
uh, black activist Brexit movement, if you will, of the Democratic Party. Uh, she has been treated like a pariah and viciously abused verbally. I wouldn't be surprised if physically attacked by Antifa. They're the social justice infantry, if you will, Antifa.
Hmm.
Uh, these people have no regard for so-called subordinated people. They would sooner trample on them and crush them to the ground if they weren't behaving the right way according to their ideology uh, than
Now,
anybody else.
Michael, when you talk about the social justice, and it really is basically communism on steroids here in
Yeah,
America, um, there are people who would say, wait a minute, well, social justice advocates are accepted on the congressional steps. They are accepted at the Supreme Court. They've even had dinner and lunch with the President of the United States. What is so wrong with their messaging, and how does that negatively impact the U.S.?
Okay, well, they are trying to use what they have done is they've translated communism into identity politics terms, and they are trying to use identity as a way of destroying the social fabric of and ripping everything. Okay, they are using so-called uh, the so-called social justice hierarchy, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
and they're trying to invert the hierarchy. I don't believe the hierarchy is real. I think that egalitarianism or equality is the real ideology guiding our country, and it's the ideology and the belief in my opinion in most people's hearts. There are exceptions, of course, and those people are unfortunate in their lies and their imbibing of lies. But for the most part, we have an egalitarian nation. These
Yes.
people don't believe in equality, or they want they think that there are some people that are privileged, just like the ruling class for Marxism, and their intention is to destroy people and the institutions that are perpetrating or that are promulgating or supporting them. So they want to get rid of all historical memory. They want to get rid of all texts in the classroom. That all of Western culture has to go. They want to destroy all the statues. They want to destroy all the historical markers of our country, and it's a real mistake even to destroy markers that represent oppression, because we need to
Yeah.
remember what happened. We need to remember what happened, and to wipe these things out and just erase history is devastating. It's the first thing that totalitarians do every time. They have to erase the past.
Mm-hmm.
They try to erase history because they need to rewrite it in their terms.
You mentioned Google. You also have written a great book, Google Archipelago. Um,
Thank you.
Now, I got to ask you here in terms of Google, what is so wrong with having a master technology company like that reaches around the world and works with China in terms of expanding the internet? What is so wrong with Google?
Well, Google is to the internet what the social justice left is to the university. They are authoritarian leftists, just like the university social justice mob. And what they are doing is attempting to create a society that is controlled and that is conforming to their values. What are those values? They are the values of so-called social justice, and that is they are promoting transgenderism. They are promoting all manner of intersectional ideology. That is the ranking system of the subordinated by virtue of how many vectors of oppression intersect their identities. They are promoting honor of leftism, and they are punishing, excluding, deleting, and trying to destroy anybody who differs, anybody conservative, anybody to the right of Mao, which should strike people as ironic. Uh, for example, YouTube just put
Yes.
out a new rules yesterday for users, and the rules have in their hate speech clause the categories that are to be protected. Well, they don't mention the category of class because they, although they say that supremacist ideology should be banned, and they ban it, they don't have anything against communists, and they
Yes.
have Maoists all over the place. Okay, and they say also that you can't have a video that denies uh, mass murder. Well, you have Maoists and other communists all over the YouTube who deny that Stalin mass murdered people, the 20 million, or and that Mao mass murdered people, 60 million, and the rest of the communist dictators, Pol Pot and so forth, who had, Pol Pot is 2 million. You have plenty of people declaring that was not true. They don't
Hmm.
get this thrown off YouTube. Why? Because YouTube is leftist. They're they're a leftist ideology. They are trying to create the world in their own image. Google manipulate search results. They blacklist various sites. They skew the ranking of various results so that the results they think should be first and second, third, fourth are. It's crazy. They're trying to
Professor,
make the world an image.
Professor, you have greater knowledge than many conservatives on this particular issue regarding Google, but I have conservative media hosts and media companies that would swear by Google that Google is doing
Mm,
everything it can, and Microsoft and all the others are doing everything that they can to make certain that media and communication of our principles are heard. Can you speak to
mm.
that particular group that seems to be blind to all the things that are going on?
Sure. I mean, perhaps they should look at my book, but also the findings of the data dump by Zach Voorhees during the summer. He dumped. He was a whistleblower at Google and dumped hundreds of pages of documents that show the the the, the bias, the delisting, the debunking, the ranking biases, and the skewing and steering of people towards leftist ideas and leftist websites against all odds. You can't find criticisms of any of the left. They're debunked. They're delisted. They're deranked. You also notice that if the conservatives aren't worried about what the findings of Dr. Robert Epstein showed, that they're steering people towards Democrats in the elections, and probably steered over 2 million people towards Hillary Clinton in 2016 by virtue of uh, the search completion uh,
Hmm.
mechanism or algorithm in which you start type search item, it fills it in for you, right? It fills
Exactly.
in a suggested yes. All of those tilted towards Democrats, all of them. So they said Robert Epstein, a Democrat, suggested that at least 2 million votes were probably steered towards Hillary, and he expects many more in the next election. So conservatives better wake up.
Thank you. Michael, got to ask you this in finality here because I want you to tell everybody where they can get your books, where they can read your stuff. Um,
Yeah,
but in finality, the impeachment, is it constitutional or is it coup?
it's a coup.
Thank you.
It's a coup. It's a coup because no underlying crime. They've there. It's an investigation. It is an inquiry in search of a crime. There isn't any crime. The crime is really their own. The interesting thing about these Democrats is that what they're doing is a total deflection. It's an attempt to deflect away from their international graft and the way they have been using their offices as means to skim millions of dollars into their pockets and those of their children. Biden is one of the most uh, nefarious and pernicious political persons in the last 100 years. He is a complete cronyist criminal. I mean, what he's done, his son got over $1 billion out of China and 80,000 a month from Ukraine for nothing. The guy can't speak the languages in those countries. He has no knowledge of any of the industries on which he was supposedly an expert and put on the board. It's complete sham. The impeachment is nothing but a deflection to keep the underlying criminality of the opponents out of.
Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Rectenwald with us tonight. This was a great Christmas gift before Christmas. I want to thank you so much for coming on tonight. How can people get your book? How can people read your articles and your editorials?
Okay, sure. Go to Michael, Michael, Rectenwald, RectenWald.com. MichaelRectenwald.com. You will find links to all my books. The last two books are featured prominently. Essays that I write on a regular basis. Interviews. This interview will be put up on the media page. after I get a link. All of
Yeah.
the things that I've been doing to try to get this message out, I've been collecting and keeping track of.
Michael, I want to thank you so much tonight for being here because my conservative friends should be illuminated by this conversation tonight that they need to wake up, that the election is not a given for Donald Trump or any of their conservative ilk. That literally we got to get out there and we got to fight this good fight. And we got to do that with education and illumination as well. Merry Christmas to you
Absolutely.
and yours. We look
Merry
forward to your
Christmas.
return to our program next year. God bless you, sir.
Thank you. God bless you.
Michael Rectenwald, ladies and gentlemen, a professor, a man of all earnestness and honesty, letting America know that we are at risk. We are at risk. It's not a drop, it's not a tinkle, it's not a rainstorm. It is a flood of Marxism, communism, socialism, and likewise. So I would encourage you, ladies and gentlemen, definitely check out michaelrechtenwald.com. I want to thank you so much for tuning in tonight to the Exceptional Conservative Show live from the nation's capital. I'm yours truly, the Exceptional One, Kim McClinton. And though I do not have a radio voice, I have a voice for internet television. We'll be right back with one of the best conversations in the world coming up with none other than our beloved Janis Hall, the J Hall World Report. Stay tuned.
Hey y'all, it's Nita, and